So let's move on then to the next speaker on my list. And this is a person I met at several conferences. He's a very good speaker. He's now the Director General of the Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation, also called Norad. His name is Bård Vegar Solhjell, and he is actually going to talk about sustainable energy for sustainable development. So, Bård Vegar, I hope you're ready to talk about this topic, please.
Thank you, Tina. I am, and thank you for lifting expectations just before I was speaking. I was actually also planning to joke about the bleak day we're seeing now in the sun, but I'll just skip that after listening to Lars Andreas. I guess it's on every speaker's list today, and move straight to the issue, which is about the biggest challenge we face together as humanity, basically, climate change. Which is also one of the few very totally global challenges we face, and which is so interconnected with the issue of energy. Energy use, fossil energy use, is the major problem creating climate change. Thus, renewable energies is also the major solution. And renewable energy is also one of the vital solutions to the poverty problem that we work a lot with in Norad, and in the interconnectedness, the sustainability goals that we are working with on behalf of the Norwegian government. We are not on track to reach Sustainable Development Goal number 7. More than 600 million people will still lack electricity access in 2030, according to the latest challenges. And of course, the big opportunity is that if we can move that ahead faster, we are also creating solutions to another major problem, climate change. So this is mostly a big opportunity for the developing world and the developed world together to meet two challenges at the same time. And of course, energy, like we all know, is also connected to so many other sustainability development goals and issues. I want to say a few words about how we work with this in Norad and what we do. But coming into that, I think it's really important to say that innovation and investment from the private sector is key to reach the SDG 7. So what we basically do is try to be a useful partner to businesses in the energy sector, and to develop a sustainable power sector and solutions require long-term strategies, broad approaches, and sometimes which is very country specific. I think you can say we basically work through 3 main channels. The first the first ones are the first channel is multilateral support. We channel funds through the World Bank, the African Development Bank, the Green Climate Fund, and so on. You know, quite well-known international institutions. And when we do so, the main aim there also is, of course, to pool money into instruments that can be helpful to increase private investments in renewable energy. And to give you one example, the World Bank's Energy Sector Management Assistance Program, SMAP, reports that with their approximately $1.2 billion portfolio, they can turn that into around $37 billion of private investment. So it's 30 times the concessional funds that we provide them with. Others have report other numbers, sometimes also smaller, but still getting the most private investments out of those the concessional funds is a key goal. The second channel that is really important is, of course, commercial investments. And we do that ourselves through different means. An important means, which is well known probably for some of you, is the enterprise development for jobs, which facilitates private sector engagement in developing countries, for instance, through feasibility studies. At its best, it's extremely cost efficient and well working. Quite small sums of money can be a really important part of a much bigger private investment in developing countries. Currently, we are also setting up a new instrument that I'd like to speak a few words about, which is a guarantee initiative that the government has launched. And we hope it will be able to fill some gaps in the guarantee market for renewable energy. And it's set up in two ways. First, we have just had a first round of applications actually for a guarantee premium subsidy, which closed in October this year, where Norad is paying up to 50% of the premium subsidy for someone who has a guarantee or from somewhere in the capital market. This is both for on-grid and off-grid solutions, solar and others. But of course, reality is that it's easier, of course, to get a guarantee in the market today for a bigger on-grid solution than smaller off-grid or distributed solutions. The other part of this instrument is that we plan to enter into an agreement with the African Trade Insurance Agency, ATI, in the first quarter in 2021, and also another guarantee institution, potentially MIGA, which is part of the World Bank, where we will add capital to existing guarantee institutions, but also work with them on product development within existing guarantee mechanisms. And one of the things we are looking at is, of course, how can we develop instruments that are also feasible for off-grid and distributed solar solutions, which we find is a problem actually today in the guarantee market. Then also let me touch on a few more issues here with you. And the first is the importance of solutions that go beyond the grid, which I already talked about, decentralized solutions. We know that to achieve universal access by 2030, we need to think wider than on-grid. And in a poverty reduction perspective, this is maybe key actually to be able to reach the Sustainable Development Goal 7. And just to give you a few examples, in Cambodia, 66%, that's 2/3 of health centers use off-grid solution to cover their primary electricity demand. So it's absolutely vital. In Niger, in Africa, one of the world's poorest countries, where only 14% of the population has access to electricity, we see that mini grids, batteries, home lighting systems and so on provide electricity for 3% of schools. So for quite a lot of kids, these distributed solutions are actually totally necessary today. The Solar Energy Cluster made the report Cheaper, Faster, Cleaner in 2019. I think sums up the needs and the benefits of the decentralized solutions quite well, and we recognize these needs. And to me, it is a clear goal that we will work to make our instruments, but also our partners' instruments, better suited to these needs. But innovation must also take place on-grid solutions, not only off-grid. And electrical cooking, e-cooking, is an issue that has caught my interest, and I think I want to say a few words about. Around 3 billion people, so like 3 billion people do not have access to modern energy solutions. And a recent SDG progress report from IRENA showed that there has been close to no progress at all on this target in the last 10 years. And more research is emerging on electrical solutions as part of the solution here. With energy efficient appliances and smarter technology, electric cooking can become a driver of electricity demand in the future. And electric cooking can also reduce the pressure on forests and the demand for charcoal, which is a huge deforestation problem. So it can also have an immediate positive environmental impact. And through the World Bank, SMAP, we have supported recently a report about the future prospects for electricity, which finds that electric solutions to cooking can make a significant contribution to the SDG 7 goal, and also that it can be a cost-effective option for consumers in both off-grid and grid-connected settings. So that's actually an issue where we will have to look closer at. And just before ending, a few words on COVID-19 and the effect that it has had on sustainable development. Because in Europe, we know COVID-19 as a health crisis that has also had a profound economic effect. In Africa and in some other poor countries, the virus itself have had less immediate effect than many thought, but the economic consequences are disastrous. And I think too few people realize this. The World Food Programme, a receiver of this year's Nobel Peace Prize, has in their prognosis, they say that hunger, immediate hunger, and the need to help with food security is doubled in 2020. We've had a generation of progress in terms of reductions in extreme poverty. This year, it will probably rise with 100 to 150 million people. That's people who live for under 20 Norwegian kroner or $2 US every year. And we see the same in the energy sector, in the education, in many other economic and social sectors, that COVID-19 is closing the economic down and hurting progress also and other issues. And energy is part of that picture. So what we're seeing, unfortunately, I mean, I'm an optimist by nature, but it's a bit difficult to be optimist when looking at the state of the world in December 2020, because we're further away from the sustainable development goals now than we were just a year ago, when we were a bit too far away from the goal. So I think it's also extremely important now to appeal to the public sector, to the private sector, to everyone, that we will need to restart the economies of poor countries also. And most poor countries, the least developed countries, they have no oil fund and they have no social security system. So development aid is part of the picture, but private investments is definitely key. Private investments from OECD countries was before COVID-19 probably 3 times the total of all aid budget or development cooperation. Prognosis shows it could be down by 30% or so this year. It's understandable that the private sector doesn't invest as much in the African continent or South Asia when there's a crisis at home. But restarting investments is essential once we have a vaccine and our societies turn back to normal. So instead of finishing off by talking about how much we long for the sun, I'll finish up by an appeal to the private sector and to politicians in the public sector. We need to restart the economies of poor countries. They're part of the world economy, like they're part of the world health. And to reach the sustainability goals, whether it be on climate or energy, we'll need that extra engagement in the years to come. Thank you so far.
Thank you very much. Very interesting to hear. And before you leave us, We do have a couple of questions. I know you have to be very soon, but stay on with us for just a couple of minutes. Because first of all, you're talking about the access to capital, which is very important. What we read in the newspapers every day almost is that there are a lot of capital available, but they can't find the right projects. And many investors want to look at green options when they do invest. How could we actually close the gap and see a better cooperation between the private side and how actually to get or direct the money where we need them the most, as you're saying as well, within the developing countries?
Well, thanks for that question. I think you're pointing to probably the main key to really getting investments unlocked, because if you look around in the world today, there's a lot of capital, willing to get almost a negative interest rate it's in Western capital markets, while there are loads of projects in the developing world where the capital doesn't go, and where capital is too expensive and the risk is too high. So finding ways of reducing risk and to use quite small means of public funds to help investments and capital find an acceptable risk, an institutional risk, economic risk, and so on, is extremely important. One type of risk that I haven't talked a lot about, but we work quite a lot about, is of course the institutional risk. What the work we do with capacity building in states, with the energy market institutions, the work we do in tax for development, which is helping build institutions in countries, or just to assure the rule of law through our democracy work, is an indirect form of this work. And then I talked more about the direct forms, the guarantee institute, the guarantee institute that we're setting up, our development for jobs program, and also some of our embassies does a lot of, and I'm quite sure some of you will have done that, know that also some of our embassies have played a role like that. For instance, in the Makuma project in Mozambique, where Scatec was building. But finding good instruments and doing even more of that in the renewable sector is important. And I will add that this is also an approach that could be important to look at in other sectors of the economy. For instance, the oceans economy.
Thank you very much. This is what we have time for today, and I know you have to run as well, Bård Vegar. Thank you for the presentation.
Good to be with you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.